Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're also on Spotify. We're a bunch of other places as well. And if you look for us, you'll find us. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Ellen Knoefel. Is that Knoefel? Am I close?
Correct.
Knoefel,
Very
great.
good.
And Connie Stanfield. And they're both with Project Linus. And before we begin, folks, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching it, that's Connie, that's Ellen. And I should mention that Ellen is the chapter coordinator of Project Linus, along with her dedicated assistant. I like that. Dedicated assistant, Connie Stanfield. And today we're talking about a most interesting and important nonprofit organization here in Western North Carolina. And I've heard about Project Linus. I don't know too much about it. But before we begin, let me just ask you both this question. So, Ellen, I'll ask you first. You grew up where as a kid?
Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville, okay, a genuine Asheville person. And Connie, you grew up where?
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay. And so both of you, when you were growing up as a child, did you always know you wanted to be involved with a nonprofit involved in making blankets? Was that your goal as a kid?
Ellen,
No.
you go first.
I never thought about it. Truthfully, no.
Well, what got you into it?
I lived in California for 20 years, and when I moved back here, I knew I needed to find a volunteer opportunity. I wanted to give back. I tried several things, and then I read in the paper that there was an organization that donated blankets to children, and if I would like to deliver to the hospital, to call. I called, and that was the beginning 22 years ago, and I haven't stopped running since.
Now, when you were involved in it, had that been your background? Like, do you make the blankets, or you just deliver them, or you do both?
Both.
So, had you had a background in that thing, in knitting or sewing or making blankets?
Just as a hobby.
Yeah.
I knitted and crocheted as a hobby.
And so I'll ask kind of the same question, that how'd you get into this?
Well, my mother was real big in volunteering when I was a kid. So I just grew up thinking that I should volunteer and help people wherever needed. And when we moved to Mills River, North Carolina, I, like Ellen, read in the paper about Project Linus and the group here. And I happened to be a quilter. So I quilted some blankets, called, and Barbara Bernhardt was running the chapter at the time. And she invited me to bring the blankets over. And that was the beginning of my love of Project Linus and helping kids wherever they are.
Now, with respect to Project Linus, so as Ellen was saying, there are like two parts to this. There's one part making the blankets, I guess, and then the
Yes.
other part is delivering them. Is that
Right.
that has
Right.
happened? So talk a little bit about then Project Linus. So you heard about it. How long has Project Linus been involved in the country?
I would love to tell you a little bit about Project Linus.
Please.
It began in Colorado. It is a national organization with chapters all over the United States. It began in 1995 in Colorado. A young woman saw a picture of a toddler in the Sunday paper. She was dragging her blanket. Her blanket was her security. She had cancer. She took it to all of her treatments. This young woman started making blankets. Her friends started making blankets. And that's how Project Linus began. In 1998, there was a Barbara Bernhardt, as Connie mentioned, in Hendersonville, who was a guardian ad litem, an advocate for youth. And she was knitting blankets for her children, mainly babies, drug babies that were being taken from their home with their diaper, and that was about it. And she read about Project Linus, and she realized that was her mission, to provide a handmade blanket for a child who was either seriously ill or going through some type of tragedy. And she started the chapter in Western North Carolina in 1998.
So right now, how many folks are involved in this in Western North Carolina?
When she started the Project Linus here, it was Henderson, Transylvania, and Buncombe County. We now cover 12 counties. We have about 500 blanket makers,
Wow.
and we deliver to 40 to 50 agencies.
So how many blankets do you produce a year? About.
Last year, we gave out 4,700.
Wow.
Since this chapter started in 1998, we just reached 86,000 blankets in Western North Carolina.
How cool is that? Now, and these are all blankets that have been made specifically for this project?
Absolutely.
And so, let me ask you too, in terms of the people who make the blankets, are there any guys involved?
We have a couple of men involved,
Oh, do you?
Ellen.
Who actually do the knitting?
Yeah, we have a gentleman that goes to Make a Blanket Day in Asheville and works with blankets, right? And a couple of our ladies whose husbands have retired have started making blankets.
Oh, we welcome everyone.
Yes.
So I don't know if you know the name. Who is it? Rosie Greer. Do you know that name? Was
Yes.
a famous football player, and he
Absolutely.
was first. But it was so exciting years ago that he was the first one to a guy I ever knew came out and said, "Hey, guys can knit. You know, there's nothing wrong with it."
Sure, why not?
It's therapeutic.
Is
It
it?
is.
Well, talk to me about that. So, how do you both get involved in knitting? So you said, Connie, you said your mom had been involved in it. Ellen, how did you start knitting?
I learned.
No,
Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
My mother knitted when I was growing up, and I didn't pick it up. And then I was working in California, and my desk mate was knitting all the time, and she got me started.
You know, it's funny. It brings back a memory to me that I used to teach on a high school level many years ago, and I always remember this, folks, that a student in my class was the biggest pain, ever. She was very poorly behaved, and all of a sudden she started taking up knitting, and she was great after that, until the principal once came by and saw her knit and said, "Your students can't knit in class," and she became terrible again. But isn't that a shame, that knitting, I would think, would be very good for almost anybody to do. Would you say?
That's what I say. It's therapeutic. It's calming and rewarding.
Yeah. How about in terms of learning it? Is it hard to learn?
No,
Not at all.
Yes, say you. But it looks complicated, but anybody can pick it up?
absolutely.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then once you learn it, you then all of a sudden talk about how they then start becoming blanket makers. Is this something you do once a week or on a regular basis, or where do people make the blankets?
The blanket makers make the blankets in their homes, and we have drop-off places. We pick up the blankets. We meet once a month to process the blankets. That means logging them in. Each blanket gets a tag that says Project Linus. They get checked to make sure they do not have any hidden pins, not so much with the knitted ones, but with the quilted ones. Because we give from birth to 18 years of age, we measure them as to small, medium, and large. And then we put each individual blanket into a clear plastic bag so that we know they're clean and protected, and then they're ready to be delivered.
How long does it take to make a blanket?
Well,
That's a hard question.
our blankets are not just knitted or crocheted. They're also quilted, or fleece is very popular now, the no-sew fleece. The fleece probably takes 2 hours.
Mhm.
A quilted one could take 4 hours. Connie knows better. A knitted and crocheted takes lots of hours.
Yeah.
So typically how many hours, Connie?
I do quilted blankets because I prefer quilting, and I can make a blanket in a day from scratch to finished. So, maybe 6 hours to complete a blanket, from
Now,
cutting out all the squares to sewing it together and then quilting the pieces together.
Now behind you are some of the blankets?
Yes.
Okay,
This one is quilted.
yeah.
This is a fleece blanket that has a lovely crocheted edge around it. This is what we call our no-sew blankets. So ladies buy some yardage of fleece, which is available in all of the fabric stores, and they crochet this lovely edge hopefully that matches. Most of them do. This is a knitted blanket, and it's a small, which is, you know, again, like Ellen said, we have small, medium, and large. And this one is just lovely. And then this is another quilted blanket. And so those are the main ones: knitted, crocheted, fleece blankets, and quilted blankets.
Now, aside from the time involved in making the blankets, do the folks who make them, primarily the women, do they donate their, in terms of buying the equipment and stuff, or buying what they need? Is that donated as well?
We have lots of donations, and many of our blanket makers provide their own supplies.
Very sweet, yeah.
If there's someone that is interested in joining us and they would like us to provide the supplies, we will do that.
Okay, and I see you're holding up something, Ellen.
Yeah,
What's that?
this is a gorgeous crocheted
Yeah, it is.
blanket.
Yeah. Did you do that?
No, I wish I could take the credit, but no.
Okay.
Can we tell you about the mission of Project Linus?
Well, sure.
It's a twofold mission. So Connie, you want to?
Yes, this is the mission of the organization that's national. And the first one is to provide a love, a sense of security, warmth, and comfort to children who are seriously ill, traumatized, or otherwise in need, through the gifts of new handmade blankets and afghans, lovingly created by volunteer blanketeers. We call our ladies blanketeers. The second part of our mission is to provide a rewarding and fun service opportunity for interested individuals and groups in local communities for the benefit of children.
Let me ask you, in terms of your volunteers, or again, I'll have to remember, blanketeers, we call them?
Blanketeers. It's a combination of blanket makers and volunteers.
Have you had, and Ellen, you may know this more so, have you had any people you've ever given a blanket to, and did they ever come back as a blanketeer? Have you seen that at all? Or has that ever happened?
Well, since we give the blankets to children,
Right.
we don't have children that come back, but many women, moms especially, when they get a blanket for a child, will join our group. Sometimes it's in the form of donations. Sometimes they actually start making blankets, and sometimes they will come to our labeling meetings to sew labels on and help us get the blankets organized for distribution.
And that's why I asked Ellen the question, though. I imagine, or somewhere down the line, that somebody who did get a, wouldn't that be cool if they got a blanket and they came back 20 years later, 25 years later? So you don't know that offhand, but
We'll have to let you know. That has
no,
to
Yeah.
wouldn't that be great, though? You know, that
Yeah.
it's somebody benefited. Talk to me about the reaction you get from people then. So talk about, I guess, twofold reaction. The reaction of the parents, you know, you give this to, and talk about, do you get to see the kids when they get the blankets at all?
Ellen
before
does.
before COVID, I
Right.
used to go to the hospital every week
Oh.
and deliver the blankets to the children. COVID changed the world. Now I go every week and they meet me out front, and I go with about 50 blankets every week to mission. So no, do not get to see the children. But years ago I did, and it was exciting. It was thrilling. Lots of times the moms were even more excited than the children. It's just a wonderful, rewarding, addicting organization.
It's probably equally rewarding, and talk a little bit about that's Connie, also Ellen as well, for the people who actually do make the blankets. In other words, and I guess because you do it as well, describe that process.
Well, for me, it's therapy, like Ellen said. And I particularly like quilting because I can take a pile of fabric that doesn't go together, doesn't mean anything, and turn it into a blanket that a kid is going to absolutely love. I try to use bright colors and children-friendly fabrics, you know, and it's just so rewarding for me to look at it and think, oh, I took this little scrap of fabric and I made this wonderful blanket. And then some kid, we have had letters in the past of children that have grown up with these blankets and have kept them and even taken them to college. Ellen reads some of the thank you notes that come through, and some of these kids actually take them to college with them because it's a security issue for them, and they remember when they got them in the hospital or wherever they happen to get a blanket. And just knowing that you're giving a kid something, a hug and love, man, there's just nothing like that in the whole world. It's just wonderful.
Well, even looking at the blankets behind you, they're so, so.
They're colorful, yeah.
We call it a hug when the child needs it the most.
Okay, yeah. I can see it because, again, as a kid, I don't remember ever getting a blanket, that I get a blanket's a blanket. I've never had a blanket like the ones behind you, so to get it, and it was made for you specifically, or made
right.
It's cool, and somebody keeps it through college. That's quite
yeah, it really
quite
is
something.
neat.
Connie mentioned, Ellen, you said the reaction. Talk a little bit more about that. You said that you get letters from people about the blankets.
We do get letters, and I can tell you several that we've gotten that really touched the heart. From a 15-year-old girl who was in a shelter and had been abused her whole life. And she wrote, at this point, she had decided to take her life, and she was given a blanket. And her first thought was, somebody thinks about me and cares for me and doesn't even know me.
Oh.
And as she wrote, I decided to turn my life around so that I could do something for somebody else.
Wow, is that something? That's it makes
So-
it all worthwhile.
A mom who wrote, she was in the hospital holding her baby, and the baby was not going to make it. She no longer had her baby, but she had the blanket that the baby was wrapped in so that she would always have the baby with her.
Okay, I'm getting a chill hearing those stories, but
I could go on and on, but you get it.
no, but I'm saying it's just such a sweet thing to do. In terms of if somebody wants to get involved in this, so again, back to what if they have no knitting experience? Will you help them learn or grow in this, or what happens?
We will give them guidance. We will do the best we can to give them guidance. If they don't sew, I would suggest that they do the no-sew fleece. And this is a very popular thing for Girl Scout troops, classrooms. It's easy to do, and young children like to do them. Older people like to do them also.
Yeah.
And what's the idea behind that?
I'm sorry, what?
You said, what's the idea behind it? You said it's a no-sew thing?
It takes no sewing. You buy a piece of fleece,
Right.
and you fringe. Let me show you one.
If you would, please.
You buy a piece of fleece, you fringe the edges, and then you've got a lovely soft blanket that a child loves.
Okay. So even if you don't sew or knit, this would be a good way to start?
Right, absolutely.
Do you have any people who come into you with very little background, but they develop more and more as they do this more often and become somewhat proficient at this?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
it's not difficult. It's very easy.
Yeah. And so if somebody wants to get involved, what's the procedure? Is there a website, phone number? What do they do?
There is a website. I'm going to give you the national website in case they want to learn more about Project Linus. And that's projectlinus.org. Or our local website is projectlinusofwnc.org. And that will give them contact information, how to reach me, and then I will send them information.
Okay, so of course I'll have you repeat that one more time. So if anybody is listening or watching wants to get involved on the Asheville level, best bet is to what, Ellen? Contact the website you mentioned for the local level. And could you repeat that again?
projectlinusofwnc.org.
Okay, and that's for the local level and the national level.
And it's not just Asheville now, that's Western North Carolina.
Okay.
And then the national is projectlinus.org.
Now, do you have people, it's interesting, who move away from Asheville? Can they get involved at other chapters or other locals?
If they go to the national website and click on chapters, it will bring up a map of the United States. They can click on the particular state, and then it will list all the chapters that are in that state.
Nationally, ballpark, do you know how many chapters there are? Or
Around, and I'm just being approximated, 348.
Yeah.
okay. Now, have you ever visited with any of the others or spoken to those folks as well?
I do. And before COVID, we used to have a conference every year where we would meet. At that time, the national office was in Bloomington, Illinois. And they would get, Connie went with me several times.
Mhm.
And at that opportunity, we would have a chance to talk to other coordinators, get new ideas, and just be rejuvenated.
And our hope is that maybe in another year or two, they'll finally have another one, you think, in our lifetime?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I imagine it was probably very exciting to get together with everybody. And,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Zoom
Yeah.
Zoom's not quite the same experience. No offense to what we're doing here, but it's different when you meet them in person, would you say?
It is. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, if anybody's listening and wants to get involved in this, what would you say is kind of the key thing that you think they'll get out of it if they volunteer for Project Linus?
I find it warms my heart every time I talk to someone on the phone, every time I send information out, every time I take a blanket to the hospital. It's just a very rewarding, heart-rending situation.
And same thing too, Connie? Would you second that or anything you want to add?
Yes, the other thing I would like to add is that the group of women that are involved in our labeling meetings are some of the best women I've ever met. They are upbeat. They come to work, but they come to sew on labels. I do the pin checking. We have the blankets measured so we know which size. We have gals that pull the orders for all the different facilities. And every one of these women are just fabulous, fabulous women. And you meet them through Project Linus because they all want to help as well. And it's just wonderful. So not just the children benefit from it, but also our blanketeers benefit, by getting together. And we have anywhere from 30 to 50 women a month get together. We used to have more, again, before COVID. And they're just such a great bunch of women that give their time. Some of them don't make blankets because they don't know how to sew, but they come and they help us measure, they help us bag the blankets, they help us deliver the blankets, and it's just wonderful. So
talk about labeling. So what goes into making a label for this?
Ellen, show a label.
I don't know. Yeah, I've got the label right here. Can you see it?
I can see a little bit. I see Project Linus.
And it's got made with tender love and care for Project Linus. And then it has the website on it.
So that gives them information if they want to find out more. So each blanket gets a label. Is that what happens?
Yep.
Each blanket gets a label.
Okay. And talk a little bit about then after what happens. So you make X number of blankets a month. How do you make the determination of who gets them, and how is that figured out? And how does somebody put in to get them?
Henderson County has a contact person who calls the list of organizations, the agencies, the facilities each month to see how many blankets they want. In Asheville, I just automatically take 50 to the hospital every week. Then I get phone calls from agencies that want blankets. Transylvania County gives to the hospital there. So lots of different ways that we give out the blankets.
I assume you never had a situation where you had a surplus of blankets. Is that true? Does that ever happen?
It has happened, but we can quickly make lots of phone calls and that surplus can quickly disappear.
And talk also about who gets the blankets. So we talked about children before. Is there two questions in terms of age? Is there age range of who gets the blankets? Is it designed for a certain age?
Blankets are given to birth to
Right.
18 years of age.
Okay.
And they go to hospitals, Pardee, Park Ridge, Transylvania, Mission Hospital. They go to shelters. They go to IAM in Hendersonville. They go to the Salvation Army, go to the Red Cross. They go to police departments, fire departments, sheriff's departments, yeah, rescue mission. The list goes on and on.
But again, it's geared to the children who get the blankets
Oh,
as well as
yes,
the adults.
it's only children.
Okay. And talk about the same token. If people volunteer with you, kind of what's the age range of your volunteers? Do you have, I mean, it could be like almost any age. What's the youngest volunteer you have typically?
Probably high school.
You do have high school?
They don't join us at our labeling meetings. Obviously, these girls are in school, but we get a lot of blankets donated from, well, Girl Scouts, high school groups. A lot of them use it as a senior project that they do. I personally pick up at Joann's Fabrics in Hendersonville, and every maybe quarter there'll be a group of blankets from one of the college sororities. I think they are. They don't put their name on them, so we don't know who they are particularly. But the gal at Joann's always tells me, oh, the college kids were in and they brought a bag of blankets for you. The gals that come to our meetings to do the labeling are mostly retired gals, because that's what you do when you get retired. You start volunteering. So we don't have too many real youngsters come.
But back to
Once in a
blankets.
while, a grandchild.
Do any Girl Scouts make blankets at all, or any of the
I
local
think Ellen
organizations?
has a couple of Girl Scout groups.
Right. We have had Girl Scout troops, Sunday school classes. Yeah.
Because what you say reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and it was a guy by the name of not a guy. Shirley Chisholm was a congresswoman, first a black woman to ever run for president,
Oh, yeah.
and it's what
Right.
you folks do. She said, "Service is the rent we pay for living on Earth." You know, but that's what you're doing. You know, it's just
it's beautiful. It's so true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, just listening to you, that who would think, making blankets, I guess years ago, or 1800s, whatever, people made blankets for to live with. But who would
Right.
think that there'd be a need for people to make blankets nowadays? But I guess maybe now more than ever that people can really use the blankets. And I guess the beauty of what you do is there's something, I guess, to be said about a handmade blanket made with love, as opposed to just going to a store and buying a blanket. It's just a different kind of feeling, we'd say. Yeah.
It's that hug. It's a hug when a child needs it the most.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I just love it. Anyway, to recap, Project Linus, been around for a long time in Asheville area since 1998?
98. Very good.
98. And if people still want to get involved, they're welcome to come. You're always looking for people to get involved?
Oh, we certainly
Yes,
are.
we are. Yep.
Okay. And what happens? People come in kind of whenever they come in, and you just put them to work whenever they volunteer?
Right. We'll find something for anybody that's willing to do anything.
Well, we'll give Connie's husband a shout out too, even if it has to do with getting a Zoom meeting set up. So tell him thank you. But without him, I don't know if we would have had you on board, Connie. So tell him thank you as well. So
I will.
Is he a volunteer in the organization, or does he help drive blankets around?
He does whatever we need him to do. When Ellen has a job that needs a handyman, my husband is the guy.
Okay,
He's always there for us.
okay, very, very nice. And we'll give a shout out. His name is what?
Herb.
Herb. Okay, shout out to Herb if you're listening. Herb, we mentioned you. And one last time, Ellen, I'll have you mention the two websites. The local website is
Project Linus of WNC.
okay.
.org.
You get all the information you need to know about volunteering or getting involved in an organization. And nationally, if people want to read about the history of the background, that website was
ProjectLinus.org.
Okay. I'd like to thank you both folks, because it's just something that people have heard about, kind of thing, but they don't know too much about it. And I think you've done a really good job of telling them about Project Linus and how to get involved. And the key thing is, you said everybody's welcome, so the more the merrier. And you'll even take,
Absolutely.
should I mention, you will take guys then if anybody's interested. Is that correct?
Oh, we'd love it.
Yeah.
Are you available?
Okay, well, I'll do the podcast. That'll be my contribution. Hey guys, thanks an awful lot. Keep up the great work you do, and we'll hopefully maybe even see you sometime in the not too distant future. Thanks again.
Great.
Thanks
Great.
so much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Appreciate it.
Nice to
and,
meet you
and thanks
too.
to your husband, Connie, because without him, we wouldn't have had you
Thank
come
you.
on board. Okay, great.
Okay. Thanks, Blaine.
You guys be well. Thanks, Ellen.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
So I want to have you disappear if I can. Put in the waiting room. I'll have, great. Okay, and as we kind of wait for our next guest to come on board, Nick, if you're listening, you can come join us. There he is. And I'll mention, before I say hello to Nick, I'll mention that you're listening to the Blaine's World podcast. We're heard at least once a week, if not twice, on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can see and find us on Spotify and any place you can find a podcast. And love to have you join us. It's now my pleasure to introduce my second guest of today's show. And he's been a guest before, but he is Nick Honerkamp. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Sir.
Okay, and Nick Honerkamp, as you'll see, is kind of an amazing guy. He's also the Church Development Director of ABCCM, and the ABCCM, the alphabet soup is what? ABCCM?
Asheville Buncombe Community Christian Ministries.
Okay, thank you. And I should mention that Nick has been a pastor for 27 years, working with youth programs as a staff pastor, in the last 17 years as senior pastor at New Covenant Church. He's honored to have recently joined ABCCM family as the Church Development Director. And Nick, before we begin, you can wave to all your friends who are watching this. So if you're watching this, that's
Glad to be
Nick.
here today.
Okay, so glad to have you join us again, Nick. And we have Nick come on board specifically to talk about a very exciting program that ABCCM is involved in called Return to Bethlehem. But before we talk about that, Nick, if you could just give a kind of a Reader's Digest version of what ABCCM is.
So ABCCM is a Christian nonprofit made up of 300 plus member churches. And we just believe that us coming together, we can do more for our community than individual churches can. And it gives practical ways for local congregants to come out and serve and really make a difference in serving our neighbors who are in crisis.
Now, before you had the current position, I know you told me you had been a pastor for a whole bunch of years. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what got you from not being a pastor to now going at the organizational level you're at?
It's called burnout, Blaine.
Okay.
That's what it's called, burnout. And
Pastors burnout? I find that
oh
hard to
yeah,
believe.
pastors burn out. People never run out of problems unless you have healthy boundaries. You can burn out. Actually, in 2020, I had decided to take a sabbatical and take some time away, and then COVID hit, and there was nothing you could do. You had to be here. You had to take care of stuff. And during that time, Reverend Scott Rogers, our executive director, came and offered me a job. I had worked in Haywood County, pulling churches together to adopt a school system, to flip the prison into a homeless shelter. And he saw that and said, can you work with all the churches over here in Buncombe County? And I said, I think this is a good time to step away from the pastorate and then come over here to work and just really try to take care of those who are living on the street, those who are struggling. We have a medical center. We run the jail ministry. I think you interviewed Vanessa James from the jail ministry, right?
Right, yeah.
Incredible person. And so it's the jail ministry, it's homeless, it's the working poor, it's people needing medical assistance, and several shelters. We run 3 different rehabilitation programs. So it's my job to go out and speak to churches and get more volunteers and more resources to serve the folks who are really struggling.
And I won't put you on the spot and ask you to show them, but I imagine too, as part of your job, did they give you a pair of roller skates to, boy, you service how many churches?
I service over 300 plus. I've been to 100 churches in about 18 months. Every Sunday I go to a different church.
Wow, so you really have to make the rounds to get out. But that's probably fun for you. Do you enjoy it?
It is. We have very progressive churches, very conservative churches, everything in between. And I love the history. I love the traditions, the liturgy, and making new friends and seeing the body of Christ from different views. It is really beautiful. I was at one church through that whole tenure of 27 years. So then to be in 100 churches in 18 months, I see a lot of stuff as a senior pastor, but also as a first-time visitor.
Well, you have taught me something too, which is, I think, kind of neat, is the fact that the churches, I guess, could become involved on their own, but it's very, very difficult. In those 350 churches to find projects, each one, it's a lot easier to have, I guess you're kind of a clearinghouse for what they want to do.
Great question, because a lot of churches want autonomy and they want their
Right.
folks to be able to do some things. However, how do you serve the homeless face to face without Narcan, without training, without safety? And so we provide safe ways for every church to be able to serve. And so what I do is I get to know each church and say, what's important to your church? If it's food, I set them up with food opportunities. If it's ministering to kids, then I give them kid opportunities. But I make sure they have a safe, controlled way of touching that firsthand, but in a way that's not dangerous.
Now, it should also be mentioned too, which I think is cool, that you're not taking away, like I said, their autonomy. If they still want to do their own individual projects, go for it. But it's just an opportunity for people to get, I guess, involved in a lot of different things and kind of pick and choose, as opposed to only being restricted to just one thing. And so this is, I guess, if a church comes to you and they have so I guess they come to you with volunteers or people who want to help out in the community. Is that the way it typically works?
Either that or I recruit them.
Okay. And I guess if somebody wants to do something, you can put them to work?
Absolutely.
Well,
We have 3 facilities that are 24/7. So if a college group says we want to do something Saturday night at midnight, I can find them something productive to do at Saturday night at midnight.
and talk about that because I think that's kind of cool. The fact that you're not restricted. I guess if you work with just your own individual church, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're kind of restricted. Here you have the whole community, and you can put them to work in, like you said, anywhere they want almost if they want to work.
Oh yeah, we use little kids, teenagers, adults. We can put any of those folks to work. One of the things that was interesting is there's some churches that have their own food pantry. They want to know the people around their church that need food. No problem with that. In 2020, we were inundated with food. So instead of receiving food from churches and giving it all out, we were receiving churches giving it out, but also giving some back to local food pantries that were at churches, because it's our job to meet the need, whatever there is in the community. But also, like specifically like midnight at Saturday. What can you do midnight at Saturday? Everybody's sleeping. Well, we get food by 50-pound bags of flour, and you can't give that to one family. So we have breakdown parties where we take flour, sugar, cornmeal, stuff like that, prepackaged food boxes. There's lots of stuff we can do to be able to serve the next day that we can go ahead and prep the night before. So we provide any kind of opportunity, any age group, any interest, we can provide it for you.
How many people does ABCCM have on board, approximately?
We have about 170 employees around the state, but one ministry that we have is statewide. It's for our veterans, and that's by far the biggest amount of employees. But we have 6,800 unique volunteers that serve, and that's our bread and butter. We would have to hire 40 full-time employees to make up for the volunteer hours that our volunteers give and serve through ABCCM.
And talk a little bit about that, Nick, then. So if somebody's listening and they either heard the first part of the show today talking about knitting of blankets, or they want to get involved with ABCCM, what do they do?
Well, first, just go to abccm.com/serve. We'd love to have you come out. Usually we either get groups that come out on Saturday and they do landscaping projects or construction, painting, something. So if a group of 25 or 30 want to come together, they can do that on a Saturday or an evening or something like that. But then individuals, we have one woman that our executive director walked up to him and said, "Can I ask you a question?" She said, "Sure." He said, "Why do you serve here?" She said, "I failed at retirement.
Oh,
I
right.
went home and I was playing on the computer, watching TV, playing on my phone, and I just did a horrible job at retirement. So I decided to come in here and volunteer, a half a day once a week." And so we have those individual opportunities, but group opportunities.
You're giving me an idea, and you and I never talked about this before, but I would think this would be a great opportunity for folks in context of two things. One, if somebody wants to have a birthday party, I don't know if you've ever done that, but wouldn't that be a sweet thing to do, that to give back to the community rather than just to have a party of sort? Have you ever done it? Has anybody ever done a party?
No, but that's very interesting. If somebody wanted to have a birthday party with
Right.
at our Transformation Village, where our
Right.
women and children are, and 7 or 9 of our kids could come to the birthday party, that would be amazing.
Right. But it's just I'm thinking out loud with you. Or the other thing, I'm thinking in terms of giving back. Because the other thing, and my wife and I have talked about this at times. I'm sure you have other people talk about this at times. But some people say they want to give back at Thanksgiving. They want to give back at Christmas. But the
Right.
problem is they oftentimes don't know how, or where.
Right.
Or as you were saying, to find somebody. If somebody calls ABCCM, and I hopefully you get more calls Thanksgiving or Christmas. Do you get calls to people wanting to help?
The number one times we get calls are Thanksgiving. That's the number one time people want to come and serve a meal, but participate in some way or another. Christmas, not as much, but that is definitely our highest day is Thanksgiving. They call months in advance to reserve a spot.
Same thing too. Can you put them to work?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There's always something to do. And so if a family has gathered from out of state and they've got 20 people and they're like, hey, we're going to have Thanksgiving meal at 2:00.
Right.
But from 9 to 1, we're going to go serve at the local homeless shelter. We've got things for them to do.
Okay. But what a great way to give back to the community.
I love that idea.
Yeah. But
We're
back
thankful, so we
right.
give back and then we go eat Thanksgiving meal.
And back to what you're saying about ABCCM, I didn't realize it, but as you were saying, it's very hard sometimes for individuals to find, who needs help, or you're going to have to call every organization. But if they contact you, you'll help them find who to serve,
Exactly.
So let's think about that other idea, though. Like I said, I really, I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner, but what a great idea for a birthday party or, something almost like Christmas or Thanksgiving, giving back, especially, for kids or benefit kids. And I guess you can also come to you and say, let me ask you this question. You would know better than I would. Do people need, in terms of services, younger folks need services or older folks need the services?
What you will find is mental health issues and addictions are not a respecter of person. They
Interesting.
deal with all colors. They deal with all ages. If you come to one of our facilities, you will find every decade represented. It really is. It's really hard on the individual person, and there is no respecter whatsoever. It hits all of us.
Because my sense also, Nick, is that everybody likes taking care of like little cute animals, but they also
Right.
like taking care of little cute kids. But
Sure,
as
sure.
people get older, there are less people wanting to come out to take care of
Yeah.
them or see how they're doing,
Yep.
and sometimes that's a real need. And let's kind of segue from there into the other thing that's keeping you folks just a little bit busy in the next month or so, and talk a little bit about something you do every so often called Return to Bethlehem. What is that?
Yep. I'd like to talk about that because, a lot of our ministries, like providing shelter for Code Purple when it drops below 32 degrees, which starts tonight, our emergency ministries we provide. One of the things that we do to intentionally give back to our community is Return to Bethlehem. It costs a lot of hours, a lot of volunteers, but somebody said, I haven't enjoyed Christmas in 3 years because Return to Bethlehem is part of my Christmas memory. And so we're getting ready to kick off Return to Bethlehem, December 1, 2, 3, and 4. For those of you who haven't been, it's a live Christmas production of Bethlehem. We have live babies, we have live animals, we have live actors, and they're playing their part. And I've been part of the whole building up the production and getting ready for it. But I hear you've been an actor in it before. In fact, it was wild. You and I saw each other at Montford Park Players
Right.
not too long ago. And that's what you asked about it. And I was like, we just made a decision. We're back.
Well,
And you were so glad about that. And I appreciated that.
well, if I can just jump in, Nick, since you mentioned it, but first of all, we should mention that one, you don't have to be a certain religion to participate. You'll take
Absolutely.
anybody,
Yes.
which is really great. And I have to say, I'll reinforce what you just said. I did it, I guess, 3 years ago, and it was a most memorable experience, And the nice thing about it, there's no auditions, there's no
Yeah.
great memorization of lines or something, and that pretty much still, I guess anybody signs up, you're going to take. And let's talk a little bit about that process too, because you were telling me, I guess off the air, you have like 50 plus spots for people?
Mhm.
And what
50 plus
yeah,
slots, but sometimes we need people to do 2 shifts. And I think your number of 80 people would be a better
right.
number to get through 4 days,
Well,
because 4 hour shifts to turn around and do another 4 hour shift would be a really hard ask. We've already got 21 people who have signed up, but what we're looking for is actors who can memorize a couple of lines of script and just do it over and over again for a 2 to 4 hour shift.
yeah. And the nice thing is, you said, Nick, you don't have to volunteer for the whole time. I think I signed up for 3 shifts or something, So
Perfect.
if you don't want to sing the whole thing, then even not to scare anybody off, a few parts have lines, but even there are very few lines. And if you have a cheat sheet with you, don't
Yeah.
tell anybody. I had that last time. I
Yeah.
played a rabbi, and this year,
Imagine that.
yeah, I said I don't want to be a rabbi. I want to be a soldier. And my friend, I got him to join me last time. It was such I don't know if I told you the story, Nick, but my friend Brian Byro came out with me, and he was such a good soldier, but he scared a little kid. And he was so upset, the little kid was crying, and he had to run after him and said, no, no, I didn't mean it. But it
Yeah.
was so fun to watch him in action. And
Mhm.
again, yeah, just have to see it to believe it. But they have these parts, and again, I don't want to scare anybody off. You don't have to memorize great long parts, and again,
Right.
nobody will tell you if you have a cheat sheet or something like that. But it's
Right.
just the more you get into it, the better. And talk a little bit about the kinds of roles. So you have, well, you wouldn't let me volunteer this year for Baby Jesus. I offered, but
I'm sorry, but I think you've aged out of that role.
okay. And the other possibility, I want to be a jackass, but you wouldn't let me do that too.
No, we
Because
use live animals.
do you really? Where do you get the animals from?
Different places. It's fascinating. We had this conversation the other day, and there were several farms in the area, and we've got a couple of guys that are animal handlers. So we go to farms to collect the animals, but these guys know how to handle them and how to work with them. But that's part of the allure is the smell, the feel, the live animals, the live baby. We actually have a child at Transformation Village in our homeless shelter for women and children that's 3 months old, and we're recruiting that mom and that baby to come out and be Mary and Jesus. So it's that real live feel that I think brings the holiday to light.
And describe the process. Again, you haven't been to it. I have been. And by the way, we should do it this year if you haven't done it in the past. Did you videotape it? Has it been videotaped in the past?
Oh, Blaine, we have not videotaped it in the past. And I listen, no, because
Right.
of our conversation the other day, I went in and said, no matter what we do,
Right.
somebody has to walk around and videotape the whole thing.
Right.
If not for production,
Right.
at least so that every year you know what parts need to be played, the feel, that kind of thing. But you had said that to me the other day, and I took it back to the marketing team.
Because again, I can't believe you've done it all these years, but nobody ever thought to have a video of it. And then I should mention, to Nick's credit, he just got thrown into it. He's new. And then you have, who's the guy running it? There's another guy in charge of it.
Jim Brewer is
Right.
our altruistic developer, and he's in charge of it. But he and I are both fairly new, a couple of years, but we've not been here since pre-2020. And we have heard so many stories about Return to Bethlehem. We went through several staff meetings where every part was described, literally every role, every line. But someone like you who's actually been in it has more to offer. I want to ask you a question. Can I do that?
Sure.
What did you get out of acting in Return to Bethlehem? What about it was enriching for your soul?
Great question, Nick. But I thought I'm asking the questions. You'll do a podcast here. But the what I got out of it, it's a quote I just used in the first half of the show, but I'll repeat it to you. I don't know if I ever shared it with you. About service is the rent we pay for living on earth.
I love that quote.
And you hear it's, by the way, it's a woman by the name of Shirley Chisholm ran for president. She was the first black to ever run for president. And she said that, and it meant a lot to me, because I believe that, Nick. We're all here to help others, And so I'll tell you a sort of funny story. The other day, I was at a festival of sorts, and a woman came up to me, and she was all excited about returning to Bethlehem. We're trying to recruit her. And she said, yeah, because no offense to Santa Claus, but she was upset that, schools and other organizations give emphasis to Santa Claus, but they don't give emphasis to this story, And so what she thought was so great about it is that if people come to it, Santa Claus is not going to be there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so I
He
mean,
wasn't in the manger.
okay, but I'm saying it's a very positive thing, and she was so excited about it because she said she wants her child to learn about the story, not about
Right.
Santa Claus,
Right.
And then worse, kids learn about Santa Claus and nothing wrong with it, I guess, but then they are told it wasn't true, so there's something wrong with that. So the beauty of it, and again, you don't have to be a certain religion to get value out of it, but to learn the story of Christ, and
I agree.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're having it at Gross United Methodist Church,
Right.
which is a Christian church. We're a Christian organization, and we're telling the story of Jesus. But the story of Jesus is very inclusive. Everybody can come to the table. Everybody can have a part. And what I enjoy is we want folks that want to come out and act, want to be able to describe this beautiful story. We're actually recruiting music groups to come out and play music as well. So
I was going to mention,
you're
so I
a
was telling,
musician.
I have a friend who is signing up for, I saw her something last week, and she plays the dulcimer. And I said, I'm sure they,
Love it.
I'm sure it wouldn't it. And so she said, just sit down. I said, there are people waiting, and just sit there and just play it. I'm sure that you could be used, So that's a good point too, Nick. Talk a little bit about what you just said, that not just actors, but performers, but you're also looking for entertainers. What would they be doing?
So the way Return to Bethlehem works is that once people actually get into the Christmas nativity scene, they're moving from station to station, hearing different parts of what was happening that day when the Christ was born. But before you get to that, there's a short waiting period where live music is being played by church groups who are practicing for their Christmas sets, or other musicians who are playing Christmas type music. It might be just regular music that someone is practicing, but we want entertainment so that when people get there, because our hope is that groups of people from anywhere, they could be churches, but it could just be a group from a neighborhood, will come together, will sit in the short waiting area, listen to some good music, get on the elevator, go downstairs, and walk into this scene that happened 2,000 years ago. I think it only takes like 20 minutes to
I
actually
was going
walk
to ask you,
through.
yeah,
You agree with that?
about that, yeah.
Okay, about 20 minutes to actually walk through the live nativity scene. So it's not a long night. It's great entertainment. It gets everybody ready for the Christmas season and a way for our whole community to come together.
And talk also about then the dates and time of this, when it's going to take place.
Yeah, it's December the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And those times, that's actually a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm gonna put on my glasses so I can look at times. On
Okay.
Thursday and Friday, it's from 6 to 8:30. So 2.5 hours. We're open that night. On Saturday, it's open from 2 o'clock to 8:30. So a long day. And then Sunday from 2 to 6. And those are the times when you can come out as an individual or a group and experience Christmas. And then I'd ask that if you were interested, I have a couple of sites that I want to send folks to, if that's appropriate, sir.
Please, yeah, and one of the things I will jump into, the site is so informative and well laid out. It gives you all the information you want to need. So if you would do that, the honor.
Well, the first thing is that if you want to know more and get to general details because you want to come and participate or come and watch, abccm.org/return-to-Bethlehem. And that gives the overall overview of what we're trying to do. It's a way to sign up for a role if you want to play a role. And then we also have the other site, which is actually the specifics of signing up, which is abccm.squarespace.com/RTB. And you can go on right now. You can say, I want to be a rabbi. I want to do music on Thursday night. You can pick your spot, get locked in. As you said, no auditions. We're going to work with you and make it simple and easy, and we're going to have fun as a community.
And I think one of the nice things you do too is that people who have never done this before or aren't sure about what's happening, I think you have one night scheduled for an orientation so that if they're not familiar with it or uncomfortable with it, you're going to have them come by early.
Yeah.
But I think, Nick, if I can just go back to those websites, I think the best thing we can do to tell folks who are listening is two things. One, if I forget when I put this up on the internet, just put in the address on the comments section. So if I forget to put it up, I'll try to remember. But also, rather than all the alphabet soup, the overall it's abccm dot, is it org or org? Yeah.
Yep.
So I think if they go there, they'll have no problem. They'll just look for Return to Bethlehem, and they can find the picture or the link to get there.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and put those sites in there for you.
Okay,
the
great.
easiest way, just go to abccm.org. You can find Return to Bethlehem, and you'll find the general information and then ways to sign up as well.
Okay. And again, back to your question, which is a very good one, is so what do you get out of it? Well, a lot of things. First of all, it's a fun thing to do with somebody else too. So it's not just you. If you don't want to come by yourself, I told you I got a buddy last year. I'm trying to get a couple of friends this year as well. But what a great way to spend some time with some friends. If you want to make it an evening, go out for dinner beforehand or after, whatever. But what a nice way to get to spend some quality time with people and having a good time. You can also, I guess, is this true? If they want to be assigned to a specific role, they can ask that, or to be assigned with other people they're friendly with, they can be paired up,
Absolutely.
I guess.
So if you wanted to be soldiers and a couple of you were to sign up for something like that, you would go ahead and sign up. We would let you know whether or not you received that part, depending on how many soldiers we have left. And then we'll send you an email letting you know the orientation date. When you come for the orientation date, we have costumes and we put them on you, size them up a little bit, not exact. We try to get them to fit you. We try to go over your roles, make sure it's what you want to do. We want everybody to have a fun, energetic time that night. So we give you this enough preparation that you're ready to go, but not too much that you feel like you have to rehearse for 3 months before you get there, right?
And one of the great things too, Nick, and people just have to see it to believe it, but boy, I don't know where you put them all, but you have a whole bunch of costumes too.
Absolutely.
And so they're probably just collecting dust or something for the last 2 years. But where do you keep them?
Yeah, we have them in storage in an 18-wheeler, and we just pulled them out. We just got a building for our Christmas Angel program from Ingalls. And so we're getting ready to start our Christmas Angels program, but it doesn't kick off until around Thanksgiving. We're receiving donations, and we're also letting people adopt kids, but actually putting the presents in one package for each kid and all that really ramps up around Thanksgiving. So we're using the building. We pulled all the stuff out. We put it all up, and it's in great condition. We didn't know what we were going to find out, how many costumes we'd have to remake. We were overwhelmed with joy how well the costumes have done and how ready we are for this year.
And like you were saying, I was just blown away by the costumes. And when I saw them, they were really looked authentic or whatnot, and then you told me, in this case, a beard's kind of, I don't know if you're growing one there too, but
I got a little bit right there.
It's actually,
I don't know what part I'm playing yet. I've got to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, no, what'll happen, it happened in the past, the guy who ran it, is that he kind of had to pinch it in a whole bunch of different things, depending who shows or doesn't show. But again, encourage people to do it. And like we were talking earlier, Nick, if you want to get involved in the Christmas season in a meaningful way, what better way than tell the story of Christ, to people?
Yeah. And I love that. And this is our gift back to our community. Our community is very generous to give through ABCCM to our neighbors in crisis. This is our opportunity to thank the whole community for all we do together. And this is a totally free event. Hope people will come out. There are always an opportunity to give a Christmas donation towards serving our neighbors in crisis. That's what we do. So we're not going to keep people from that. But this is totally free. I can imagine a youth group from one of the local churches. I can see a bank saying, hey, let's do this together. Let's go out and have dinner. Then let's go to this production. There's so much team building and camaraderie and community we can build around this event.
But again, I'll think about it for next year. But what idea you just mentioned, a place, a lot of places go out for Christmas or, a Christmas party or something. Wouldn't this be a grand party for somebody?
Wow.
And you could still, like you said, if you want to involve dinner afterward, go out afterward. But could you see your staff coming together to all have roles, and timing is perfect, work's done, they come in after work or something. I should mention one other recommendation if I can, Nick, and that has to do with what you were saying, the hours. And I'll tell folks, sometimes weather permitting, hope it's Nick, you're taking care of the weather. Is that correct? You have it lined
Uh,
up?
Scott has assigned me to pray to the Lord and ask him to make sure the weather is good those 4 days.
But the point being that if you want to see it, the very best time I tell people to come see it is come right at the beginning of the evening or right at the beginning of a Saturday, because if you come at 9, whenever it starts on Saturday morning, whenever you come at night at 6 o'clock, it's not real crowded. But boy, sometimes it gets pretty crowded. So just be prepared for that. If you go on off time, I think you're going to be in better shape, or beginning session, I tell people, I have no problem getting in, even toward the end, but you come in the middle, nice night, be prepared to wait a little bit.
That's a really good point. And you can't control some things. Sometimes you just gotta be flexible. But I love your idea. Everybody does a Christmas party, every company, every
Right.
organization. And I know when I was a leader, I was a senior pastor and always trying to figure out the entertainment portion. This would be easy to come and say, let's do this together as a team, then go to dinner. I think that people would really enjoy this, give them some things to talk about. I love that idea. Next year, I'm going to work harder on that.
Well, I'll help you with it, but I'm getting chilly even talking about it because it seems like a fun event, rather than the same old,
Yeah.
or even people want to have Thanksgiving, Christmas party or belated Thanksgiving party, all good stuff.
Right.
And it's right after Thanksgiving, right before Christmas. But what a great opportunity to give back to the community, back to what you were saying, and come to be a participant in Return to Bethlehem. So
That's our joy.
really looking forward to it. So Nick, I'll ask you one last time, if you give both the dates and times, and then I think just give the one, it's up there, but people can't see it. I can see it. But the overall website, if you would, please.
Sure, be glad to do that. The first thing is the dates and times are December the 1st, which is Thursday from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Friday, December the 2nd from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Saturday, December 3rd, 2 to 8:30 p.m. And Sunday, December 4th, 2 to 6 p.m. And then when we talk about the website, when we pull up the chat real quick, trying to do several things at once, the most important part of the website is abccm.org/return-to-Bethlehem. And that'll get you right where you need to go.
And even if you don't remember all that stuff, just go to abccm.org and you'll find it. Okay,
That's correct.
It's very well laid out. And I will guarantee folks that if they do this, they will have a good time. It's just a fun thing. It could be your first time, but it's something you've never seen before. And it's amazing. How many animals do you have coming on board?
Gosh, I don't know, but I think it's a dozen to 15, something like that.
Yeah.
We use them in the parade.
Right.
And then we bring them back. The animals and the hay that we get for the parade, we use them that week. So it's all right there.
Yeah. So just an amazing experience. And I hope people get to see it because they will enjoy it. And I want to thank you, Nick, for all the good work you're doing with ABCCM. And look forward to actually seeing you in person again, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk.
Thanks, Blaine. I always appreciate you. You do a good service for our community.
Okay, buddy. Thanks. Stay with me. I'm just going to sign off, and then you and I will wrap up. So, again, you've been listening to Nick Honerkamp with ABCCM. I guess the first half hour were Ellen Noble and Connie Stanfield. Hope to see everybody next week, same time, same place. See ya.